My name is Seshadri Kumar. I have been a journalist in Houston since 1992. We are here today under the auspices of Foundation for India Studies to do an interview under the Indo-American Oral History project. We have here today with us Dr. Ponnada Narayana and Mrs. Lakshmi Narayana. Welcome to the program, Dr. Narayana. It so happens that I have interviewed you in the early 1980s back in India when I was working for the Times of India, and it's kind of fortunate that I am again doing that in 2016 in Houston. Whoever thought that we would be waiting here today. So since this whole history project records the history of immigrants living in the Houston area, let's begin with you and your journey, how you came to the United States and so on. Before that, first introduce yourself about what profession you are in and when you came to the United States and Houston.
Let me start by thanking you for conducting this interview. I appreciate it. As you said, it brings back some fond memories, about almost 30 years back. You know, I graduated from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, in 1969 with a PhD in physics. I spent a couple of years at IIT Kanpur as a research associate. And then we went to Canada as a postdoctoral fellow. And then from Canada we moved to Wayne State University, Detroit. And from Detroit we went back to India, both me and Lakshmi, to accept a position at Central University of Hyderabad. I was there for 3 years, then decided that I'll come back because I wanted to really further my career. And I know that, at least I felt, that the facilities in India were not really adequate to realize my ambitions. So at that time, Professor Kevan, who I worked at Wayne State University, he was moving to University of Houston and asked me if I could join him to build the lab. The lab itself is what's called electron spin resonance spectrometry, state of the art at that time. And there were only 2 scanners of that type anywhere in the world. I have quite a bit of experience in that area. So I built the first electron spin resonance spectrometer there. And then I worked with Larry Kevan for about 3 years. Then I thought I should take up something more challenging. And then Jonathan Ophir at University of Texas Health Science Center, he asked me to join him to work on ultrasound, applied to medical sort of clinical ultrasound. So I worked with him for about 1.5 years. Then I realized that this is what my destiny is, so to get into the medical physics and imaging. So at that time, University of Texas Health Science Center wanted to build an MRI lab. At that time, the commercially available scanners are few and far between. So they asked us to develop the whole program. So we went ahead and built from scratch, excluding the magnet, a 2 Tesla MRI scanner, where we actually did quite a bit of publication. We wrote all the software and hardware. Then it's a natural path for me then to migrate to human studies. At that time, Herman Memorial Hospital, which is a teaching hospital for UT, they bought a GE 1.5 Tesla scanner. So they wanted me to develop a research project there. And as they say, rest is history. So
before we proceed further, I think you mentioned the MRI, so we may have to explain a little bit on that. First, tell me what is your current position and where do you work exactly?
I work in the McGovern Medical School, which is a part of the UT Health Science Center at Houston. I work in the Diagnostic and Interventional Imaging Department, where I direct the MRI program. I also hold an endowed position in the Department of Biomedical Engineering at UT Health.
Okay. So which year did you all come to the United States? Lakshmi can answer.
When we were in Kanpur, I mean, he finished his PhD and he was just there for a short 8-month period. During that time, we got married in India,
Okay.
and we lived in Kanpur for about 8 months, and then we decided to come to Canada.
And then from Canada you went back and came here, or?
Yeah, from Canada we went to Wayne State University, Detroit.
Okay, okay. So that would be which year?
We came to this country in 78. the first one.
1978. And when did you move to Houston?
In 1981.
1981. Okay, okay. Then coming to MRI, that is magnetic resonance imaging.
Right.
Tell me a little bit, what does that do?
Magnetic resonance imaging, I think most of you heard. It's an imaging modality, look into the body. It's a non-invasive imaging modality, and it has outstanding soft tissue contrast, meaning thereby you can detect the pathology much earlier than the clinical symptomology, or even using other modalities like CT, computerized
So it is an
tomography.
improvement over X-ray.
It's far superior to X-rays.
Okay.
It doesn't have an ionizing radiation, so it's safe for even children.
Safe for compared.
Yes.
Okay. Since we are talking about the immigrants' life here, before we compare life here, we want to know a little bit back home, what kind of life you had. A few description of your early childhood, both of you, and where you come from in India.
Why not let me
Yes.
start?
Well, I come from a small place in West Godavari in Andhra Pradesh called Narsapur, but that's my father's native place. But my father eventually he settled in Hyderabad.
Okay.
Before that he was all over India. He was employed by Life Insurance Corporation. So we were moving every 2-3 years all over India.
So you were not always in Hyderabad?
No.
Okay. Okay. So you were educated all over?
Well,
Schooling
yeah, there was some exposure all over, but I didn't move as much because of my father decided that it will interrupt my studies.
Studies.
Being the eldest in the family, he left me with my grandmother, and I was there.
In Hyderabad?
In Narsapur.
Narsapur, okay.
And I finished my undergraduation from Narsapur, and then we got married in 71 and came here.
How about Dr. Narayana, your birthplace?
Yes. I was born in Bilaspur.
Bilaspur, okay.
Madhya Pradesh at that time.
Yeah.
My father was a railway officer, so I used to move quite a bit. So then we came to Kharagpur, West Bengal, and my father felt that by moving with him so many times, my education is interrupted. So finally we decided to go back to Kakinada. That's where my father had a house. I went to Kakinada Municipal High School, did my high school education, then went to PR Government College in Kakinada, where I graduated in mathematics and physics. After that, we went to Visakhapatnam. I went on Andhra University to do my master's in nuclear physics. After completing my graduate, then wanted to do PhD. IIT Kanpur at that time perhaps was the best institutes with a lot of facilities and instrumentation. So there were about 600 applications for the PhD position, and they selected 6. Fortunately, I was one of them. I did my PhD, and they tell me that I probably was the youngest PhD. I completed my graduation when I was 23 years old. I mean, there's no way for me to verify that I'm the youngest, but that's what they tell me.
There's PhD.
PhD, yeah.
Yeah, that's usually masters. You do
Yeah.
22 and you finished PhD in 23 is pretty
And then,
interesting. Yeah.
then as I said, we went to, as a postdoctoral fellow, we went to Canada, and then.
So after you finished PhD, how long did you stay in India?
Yeah, about 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
With Lakshmi, we stayed for about 8 months because we got married after. Yeah.
So you felt that at that time the scope for further research in your field was limited. You didn't have the equipment necessary. That's what you felt at that time. Was that one of the reasons that you moved to Canada?
That was perhaps the major reason.
Okay.
Because I was pretty ambitious to advance in my own field.
Okay.
And I did not feel, rightly or wrongly, that Central University did not offer me the opportunity to grow. Then, as I said, I was invited to come and spend Canada, and then.
So at that time you were already moved to magnetic resonance imaging, or what was your research work?
Yes, I did my PhD on solid state physics.
Solid state, okay.
And then when I moved to Canada, I worked in what's called electron spin resonance.
Okay.
That's again a part of magnetic resonance imaging, except that there's some technical differences other than it's actually magnetic resonance. That's how that.
So it looks like you are in physics and go into biology. Is it a marriage of two different fields or how?
Yeah, it's actually an interface between physics and biology. What we call the biomedical,
okay.
Whether physics or biomedical engineering or medical physics. It's really the application of physics, quantitative aspects of physics to medicine.
Yeah. So now you moved from there to Canada and then to United States. Now after 3-4 decades, when you look back, do you think things have improved in India in terms of basic research in your particular field? In other fields, maybe space and atomic energy, they are different. But in your field, do you think it has improved?
It certainly has improved since then. But still the problem is, in India we're still trying to catch up with what's happening here. For example, the number of MRI scanners in India now, most of the scanners are pretty much dedicated to clinical work, scanning the patients.
Yeah.
But for me,
not for basic research.
not for basic research, except that when at Lucknow they used to have a reasonably good research program, but that and at AIMS, I think Professor
All India Institute
of Medical Sciences, Delhi.
Yeah.
They have a decent program, but not the type of program Seshadri was looking for.
Let us switch gear and come back to Houston, to the time when you first came here. Let me ask Ms. Lakshmi, what was the condition of Houston at that time in terms of transportation, food, schools, and your life? How did you find it, coming from Narsapur to Houston?
Well, from Narsapur we made a stop in Canada. We stayed there. Even IIT Kanpur, the atmosphere was like, it's an American collaboration institute with American collaboration. So just about everybody there was American returned. They had contacts with America. So it was like a little America inside Kanpur.
So you had a familiarity?
Familiarity from there. From there we came to Canada, which is very peaceful and very safe, and not many problems. We went to small towns and we really enjoyed it there. And from there we moved to Detroit.
Right, yeah.
When we moved to Detroit, it was like a culture shock for us, for me at least. And I heard about all the crime and everything which we used to watch on the TV in Canada, and just to witness that when we came to Detroit, it was a bit shocking. But we made our adjustment. We didn't stay there very long, like 3 years maybe, 4 years. We made some friends and all, but he had an offer, so we decided to go back to India.
India, and then you came direct to Houston from
Direct from there to Houston.
And tell me about Houston life.
Houston life was not as busy as now. It was a lot quieter. The Indian community was much smaller. And they were starting the Hindu temple, the Meenakshi temple.
Yes.
And we were involved in the foundation of the temple and started.
Oh, interesting.
And we were interested in that. And because there was no Hindu temple, nothing of the sort in
Yeah.
this region anywhere
Sure.
except in Pittsburgh.
But
So it was
I think the
fun.
students, University of Houston had a students' union. That was the
Indian-
only kind of Indian
Indian
group
group.
in the early 70s
Right.
which had something. Tell me about your experience of arriving in Houston, what you found.
I think let me elaborate on what Lakshmi said, or give you the contrast. When we were in Canada, we used to go to downtown after work, it's 5, 6, 7. We used to have a lot of good nightlife. Once we came to Detroit, at 5 o'clock downtown, it's completely deserted. It was really a shock for us. One of the things which I remember about Houston was the freeway work, road work never stopped. And it continues
Even
even
today.
today. So it's sort of fascinating. And at that time, Texas Health Science Center, Texas Medical School, was pretty large, but not as large as it's right
Were you
now.
living in the medical center or?
No, we were living in a place called Missouri City.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is-
Fort Bend,
yeah,
a
Fort
neighborhood
Bend,
suburb,
yeah.
okay.
We used
Missouri
to-
City, which subdivision?
It's called Lake, not Lake Olympia, that's
Is it
Vicksburg.
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 Vicksburg,
Yeah.
okay, okay, yes, yes, yes. That's a far removed from on Highway
Yeah.
6,
And
closer to Pearland probably,
Right,
anyway,
yeah.
Vicksburg. So you were commuting from
From
there?
there.
Okay.
Then we decided that it's a little bit too much to commute.
It's a small one-lane road, you may
Right.
have had in those days, yes.
So we moved to Belay, I think it's about 20 years ago.
Okay,
And then we bought a lot, our old house, demolished it and designed our own house and built a new one.
okay.
And we have been living there ever since.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of, what about your family? We have to tell about your children, how big, where they are.
We
Tell me
have,
about-
we have one son, Anil.
Okay.
He completed his degree in criminal justice system
Okay.
from Sam Houston University. And right now he's actually looking for opportunities.
Okay.
And I think let me tell about, so I have a lot of nephews
Okay.
in different parts of the country. Most of them are in software. And one of them actually is an MBA, he's working for one of the pharmaceutical companies.
Right. Turning back to Lakshmi. We are talking about immigrants' life. So, as an immigrant, did you feel that you were kind of feeling discriminated, alone, or any kind of problems as an Indian in a society dominated by the white community? Did you have any such experience? Or you were easily able to mingle with the community and merge with the mainstream?
it was not that bad. I can only point one or two incidents, like during the 70s, early 70s, there were some problems in Canada and all that. They tend to be a little more xenophobic than US.
What about Houston?
Houston was not like that. After I came here, I went to the graduate school and I finished my master's
Okay.
at Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences here, which
Okay.
is affiliated to UT Medical School.
Uh-huh.
And then I was working at MD Anderson for several years.
Okay.
I didn't really encounter any discrimination as such because I had some colleagues, from all parts of the, cultural background.
It's interesting that you did your graduate school and worked here. If you were in India, do you think you would have done that much course and study, or what would have happened?
No, not really. Actually, I have my BSc from India, but after that we got married and came back, and so I don't really know. I don't think I would have been able to continue.
So obviously it is an opportunity because you came to this country,
Yes, most definitely.
which is not available back home. It's
Back
very
home. At least
tough
for me, yeah, it's a lot
countries.
harder.
How about your experience as an immigrant in Houston?
Most of my life I've been in academia.
Yeah.
And in academia, people tend to be more liberal. So you feel subtle discrimination, but I can't say that I felt any discrimination. I was pretty easy with all my colleagues
Colleagues,
who
okay.
came from all over the world. Houston is, I think, is a fantastic city that way. You see very little discrimination here.
Yeah.
At least I didn't see any.
Yeah, that's nice. There used to be some instances of people discriminating with the dog. Did you get any such instance?
Well, a lot of people used to come and ask me what it meant and all that. Even in Canada, they were curious what it meant. And the saree also, I had to show them, like it's just a straight material. And you wrap it around. They were amazed that you can do so much with just straight 6-yard material.
Yeah.
And I told them this is all custom made with all the things, and I had to explain to them. They were curious, but towards some economy got rough and there were more foreigners like Indians, and slowly there wasn't as much acceptance, which naturally happened. They were probably threatened, I don't know.
Then coming to the culture, language, lifestyle, did you feel like you have to give up some of your original things to adjust to the life here, or you were able to continue what all you had in India here? Any such compromise, or did you have
No, we
to?
really didn't have to, because we still eat the same Indian food what we used to eat there. And fortunately, Houston has so many eating places and so many Indian shops. We almost felt that we are actually in India itself.
As you said, in '74 they started building the temple, so that kind of almost brought the religious, spiritual culture back here. Then you mentioned about shop, but there were not too many in the '70s. You had one or two in Vietnam, if I'm told. Yes, okay. J-store or something.
It was a rare thing, and there weren't really that many Indian restaurants.
Yeah.
You either cook at home or go to friend's
place, yes.
Maybe just
Potluck.
Potluck.
Okay. But today it is not
Today
the
is
case.
the common thing.
Everywhere you see Indian stores, grocery stores, Indian cinemas being shown in the AMC, so what else you can ask for, all right? Then, so from the immigrant point of view, you did not feel any discrimination and you need not have to compromise. I have another general question that people ask, after coming to a country like this, should you all not be American? Why we should have an hyphenated Indian American, African American, Hispanic American? Do you have any opinion on that?
No, because I still respect my Indian roots and Indian culture, but at the same time I also respect the opportunities what the country gave me. So I'm some sense loyal to both countries, but probably a little more loyal to US because of all the opportunities, and we spent better part of our lives in this country. Yes, I mean, I did very well in my chosen field. And I'm well recognized both nationally and internationally in my field. And so I really don't have a very strong opinion whether I should be called Indian American.
No. Yeah, see, you need not be anti-one to be a pro of another. You can love both the countries and be loyal to both. But this has been a debate. I remember a few years ago there was a big debate why we should all have hyphenated, why can't we all be Americans? That's true. But if Indians may not want to do like that, but if another community does that, how you cannot be left behind, and to be in the mainstream you have to do that. That kind of forced, I don't think anybody chooses it one way to be this way or another, but anyway it happened, but that is there. Okay.
But if you ask my son the same question, he may give you a different answer, because he doesn't consider himself
Indian American. True.
I mean, even at home,
Yeah.
he considers himself an American.
Yeah.
As far as I am concerned, it's fine with me, because I still have strong roots and I still have a lot of connections with India.
It is just an identity for ethnic purpose or census purpose, that's all. In terms of your passion and values, as a citizen you owe your loyalty to this country, but you don't forget from where you come from. And the other day, Dr. Renu Kato, of US Chancellor, was giving a lecture a couple of weeks ago, what it is to be an Indian American. And she mentioned this, I think it's very relevant here in this topic. She mentioned three status: Indians in India, that is one phase. Then Indians in America, that is the second phase, as soon as you come here. And then how you assimilate yourself. And then Indians with America, that is the third phase. That is, you join the community, you be part of the community. That's how you succeed in this society. I believe that was a nice way of summation.
In fact, we have a lot of Indian friends and a lot of American friends.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty comfortable.
Yeah. Okay. Then tell me about your social, cultural and other community involvement, if you have any. How do you spend your time other than academics in the rest of India?
Yeah, I think most of my time has been in academia, pretty much immersed in my own research and other things. So obviously I didn't have too much of time to participate in too many cultural and social events. But lately I have been involved, one of the organizations is Indo-American Charity Foundation, which actually does a fantastic job in supporting our local folks.
Yes.
As I'm on the board of directors.
Are you now or where you?
I'm still on their board of directors.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay.
And more recently, I've been participating in Friends of our Foundation for India Studies.
Studies, okay.
And so, I'd say that my main involvement is pretty much in academia and my own research.
Yeah. How about Ms. Lakshmi?
Well, I was busy with my career, my graduate school, then our son, raising our son, and finally, he was busy traveling and with his research, so he said somebody has to stay home with him, so I decided to quit my job and just stay. That was my full-time job.
What about your involvement? Are you involved in politics?
Not
Local
really.
But you certainly do vote, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do vote, but I also know that I make a lousy politician. Because
you need not be a politician.
I'm too straightforward to succeed in politics.
Okay, all right. Are there any things that cause you concern today in terms of social issues or in living in USA today as a society and as a community?
No, I don't. Except that it bothers me sometimes about guns and violence. But the fact is that even if you go back to India now in some of the large cities, it's the same violence. Except that here it gets a lot of press coverage. So people tend to be a little more attentive to what's happening. Other than that, I really don't have, concerns. I really love the concept of mixing Indian culture with American culture. So many of my friends come to our house and we eat avakaya, and they love it.
Sure. I want to ask Ms. Lakshmi a question. Of course, he loved to come here because he had an academic passion. Do you have any regrets for coming to the United States, leaving the home country?
Well, it was not easy. As my parents were growing older, it was more and more difficult. And,
so you still love the country, obviously. I understand. You are emotionally attached. That is true. It happens for everybody, yes. But that is one of the drawbacks of being an immigrant. We have to compromise with this kind of alienation from home and family. All our elders sooner or later pass away. Sometimes you are not able to be close to them. Those kind of emotional feelings always persist. I do understand. That happens to all of us, each and every one of us.
It's part of life.
That is true. That's true. Then moving on to the next generation. Now, as you mentioned, your son would not hyphenate his life.
No.
So what do you think Indian people of our next generation, how would they be in this community, that the immigrant identity will persist or will they totally involve? Or?
I think ultimately probably it's going to, pretty soon, the second, third, fourth generation. They probably forget about Indian roots, and same thing whatever happened, Italian Americans or Jewish Americans. I mean, they assimilate themselves into the society. They don't perhaps know anything about what happened 3 or 4 generations ago. I think that should also happen with Indians ultimately, because I think it's good to remember the culture and the roots, but at the same time you can't isolate yourselves in the name of culture and not be a part of the mainstream society. I mean, so I'm glad to see, I mean, I have quite a few friends whose sons and daughters married local Americans, and they seem to do very well, both emotionally as well as professionally.
Yes.
I think ultimately that's going to happen. I think probably it's not a bad idea.
Sure. All right. Any concluding statement you want to make? And on the point you mentioned, I think how the contribution of Indian culture in a way it stays. You may become an American, but still the next generation may carry on the values without the hyphenation.
Right.
Would you agree with that? Yeah. Ms. Lakshmi would like to say anything?
Well, as you can see, I'm a very emotional person. I personally feel old age is difficult in this country. That's one thing.
Yes.
You know,
Very important point.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of our friends who are seniors, I don't know if they have regrets, but I mean, they are concerned. Our generation being...
You are right, yes.
That's one thing constantly on my mind. I mean, we are not quite there yet, but we are getting there fast enough. And I don't know what can be done about it. There are some retirement homes in Florida. There are
yes, that is true.
Out.
Yeah.
But as a community, I feel there is a need for that, and that's where the cultural differences become very
marked and clear.
Very, yes, at least for our generation.
Sure.
I mean, it's going to be difficult at this age, even though we were here for so many years. We still cannot go into a retirement home anywhere here run by Americans, and because the food and the culture, they're all different. So that's where the differences come up.
I think you have raised a very good point, and that's being in a way addressed by a lot of community organizations. They have been trying to build a retirement home for Indian people of Indian origin, but it has not succeeded yet.
Yes.
But that idea is strongly in the minds of many people. There are some seniors who regularly meet and discuss that issue. One group meets at Meenakshi Temple and another in Sugarland.
I think she attends one of those groups meetings.
Yes, that is a Telugu group
house.
Yes,
True, as you said, that is probably the next thing that the community should think of. I'm sure very soon something will. Some people have even leased the land for it, I know, in the Sugarland area, but I don't know how far it has progressed. But that's a very good point that you raised, and hopefully we will have a retirement home for people of Indian origin.
That's where the hyphen comes in.
And that is for our generation, not for the next generation. Yes, sir.
You asked me about what the country gave and whether I have any regrets. Let me go back a little bit, what this country gave me. When I came to this country, like everybody else, we came with $8. Okay, that's what government of India allowed us to fund. So then, when I was a postdoc, I mean, I had to borrow money from a travel agent to buy a ticket to come to Canada. Then I was given a fellowship of about $6,000 as a postdoctoral fellow. It was, but we used to buy coffee for 5 cents.
Yes.
So it was pretty cheap. Then we came here. I mean, then my salary doubled more than that when I came first to Canada, Houston. And I actually right now, I'm doing exceedingly well in terms of both my financial life and professional life. And what this country gave me is an opportunity to grow. For example, as said, I'm pretty well known in my own area, both scientifically, both here and internationally. And I also was elected as the fellow of International Society for Magnetic Resonance in Medicine, which is a unique honor. And I was also elected as the Presidential Scholar at UTLC Center for my contributions to the field. And I was elected as a distinguished researcher by American Academy of Radiology.
Okay.
So I'm pretty certain that many of these honors or recognitions would not have been possible if I stayed back in India. Especially for my field of work where I needed pretty advanced instrumentation as well as advanced theoretical concepts. I run a group with about 20 folks, PhDs, and medical doctors. And it's a truly multidisciplinary area. I have people in applied mathematics, in engineering, computer sciences, physics, medicine. So such a multidisciplinary approach would have been very difficult for me, at least at that time, to imagine if I stayed back in India. But as you know, this biomedical field is perhaps still at the very cutting edge. And I'm forever grateful for this country for giving me these opportunities. And I was limited only by my ambition. I mean, I wasn't really limited by any of my superiors or anybody. I mean, they gave me free hand. It's up to me either to sink or swim. And fortunately, I think I swam.
That's good. Yeah, see, you gave a very strong testimony to this land of opportunity, and you achieved that legendary American dream, and you are a standing testimony to it, and it's a success story.
Thank you.
With that positive note, we will end this interview. Thank you.
Thank you.